Welcome to Something to Talk About. The month of July has great significance to those of us who live in Guam. It's a time that we remember a really sad, horrible part of our history. And we kick it off usually with one of the most solemn ceremonies, and that is the remembrance of those who marched in Meninga. Today we're going to be talking with some of the organizers of the first event to launch Liberation Month here in Guam. On Something to Talk About, we'll talk to the Meninga Memorial Foundation, some of its members, and tell you all about it. Come on back. Welcome back to Something to Talk About. Of course, we're here at King's Restaurant in Tamuning, and I've got chamorros at the table, so it's the never-ending ordering over at King. Sorry, Dave and Lucy, but we do have what we normally do, plus the cut and pico, which Senator Lee has really hacked into. So enjoy it, and you will. We're talking about the festivities and the memorials and other solemn occasions that will take place throughout the month of July. That's the crux of the Liberation Day festivities, if you will. We take the time to kind of go backwards and remember those who have died during the occupation. And so you can't tell the story without the Meninga Memorial Foundation. And so the storytellers are here. I'll introduce to you, of course, everyone knows her, Senator Regine Bisco Lee. She's a chairwoman. Willie Flores, of course, is the president of the foundation. And Tina is the one who makes it all happen.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why she's in the middle, to tie it all together. Well, thanks for coming, and thanks for eating. I appreciate that.
Thanks for having us.
No,
as if you could stop us from eating.
This is exactly it. We're looking forward to an annual event, and I had Willie on the radio some time ago, and we talked about just the attitude of people when it comes around this time of year. One of the first events out of the gate is the Meninga March and the remembrance of that, and some of us stop and go, same month, different year, same occasion. And I think that there's a growing number of people, as evidenced by the people who have signed on for this, that it becomes a little more recognized as the years go by, because it's not a ho-hum event. Yeah. It's not a ho-hum. So the event is when, first of all? It's
July 2nd. It's Sunday, July 2nd.
Okay.
And it'll be at Meninga.
All right. And we'll talk about the particulars and the logistics, but I will point out that you are the youngest at the table.
Oh.
Yeah. But you're the youngest at the table, and you probably have known about this growing up in Guam, a child of Guam. That's part of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. I really feel like it's a full circle moment for me, and I'm so grateful to stand on the shoulders of incredible people who have brought this foundation forward. Senator Willie and a number of other folks who continue to make this such an incredible event every year. But yeah, like you mentioned, many years ago, when I think I was in middle school, my dad was a part of the foundation, and he was part of the logistics and organizing. And I remember him being, late to come home because he's doing all this work, and then finally he brought us to Meninga. And I remember thinking, man, it's so hot here, we're in the middle of the jungle, we're getting bit by all these mosquitoes. And then the commemoration began and the mass began, and it's just this incredibly surreal moment when you really think back at everything that happened there and the richness of our history and our culture and the sadness of that place. And it really just, even as a young child, you can feel that when you go there.
Yeah.
And it's very moving, and I'm so glad. It really feels like a full circle moment for me to be here as the chairperson and to be working alongside these folks that care about that as much as I do. And it's so important. I know you mentioned to remember the lives that were lost there, but also remember our survivors who were there and who were interned there and spent. Some of them were born there and spent some of the beginning part of their lives there. And it's just,
spent their lives there.
oh, it's incredible.
It's incredible, and it's an interesting story because the story still has so much traction. Because, like you say, there are survivors who continue to tell the story. Tell me, over the years.
Well, over the years, we've just, when as a young man growing up, I heard all the stories, and you can imagine, Patty, you've heard these stories too. I mean, how could someone take an old lady who is being forced to walk on this trail, and when she stumbles, if she doesn't get up, they whip her feet, or they take her and toss her into the jungle on the side, and everybody keep going. How can humans do that to each other, right? And as a young man growing up, it was very personal to me because my mother was one of the people who insisted that history be passed down, and she had no qualms in telling us some of the things that happened. Some of the worst things that happened she wouldn't talk about, but for sure some of the other stuff. And as I looked at them, and I looked at my dad, and I looked at our parents, right?
Yeah.
I go, so how come these people don't hate? How come I hate, right?
Yeah.
How come I hate and they don't? And so they what brought them through when you get through, the underlying tone is always what brought them through was their togetherness and their faith.
Right.
And there were only two religions at the time. There was the Baptists and there was the Catholics. And at that time, that didn't matter. They stuck together and they moved forward. So in faith, their faith in God kept them going, and so it took me a long time. But my mother kept instilling in me, "Hey, you got to forgive." And there are some people that went through that still can't forgive.
Yeah, that's the thing. There are still some people. You still will find people who have a hard time getting past
They will not
it.
get over it. I mean, I know people who, you just mentioned the word Japanese, and wow. There's hatred, there's anger,
There's literally
there's
tears
really,
coming.
What is the attitude toward the U.S. though? I mean, is that an element of this story? Although they were liberators, and although they've been celebrated throughout history, there is still an attitude about Americans.
Yes.
And I think that kind of differs between, from one Manongku to the next, what their personal experience was during the war, and
But they all felt abandoned.
Yes.
They all felt, when the Japanese
some of them
came,
still feel abandoned
they
to
felt,
this
yeah,
day.
That's right. But
At
that moment, they couldn't understand why the U.S. didn't defend Guam and why the U.S. allowed this to happen. And so they felt abandoned at that.
There's still that.
No,
there's still the old history.
Definitely,
But unlike anywhere in the U.S., as it always is pointed out, unlike anywhere in the U.S., as Americans living in Guam, there's no other place where there was occupation at that time on American soil.
Forced march, internment, rape.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these things, these atrocities that happened.
And then, they talk about, we talk about reparations, that's the current thing, right? However, what really hurts the folks is, why did the U.S. say to Japan, don't worry about it? Well, don't worry about it. What you did doesn't matter. I mean, that's how it comes across to our Manamkone, is what happened to them doesn't matter. We'll move on with our political and international relations agenda, and what you guys did on Guam, no big deal. Don't worry.
But I think that's one of the reasons why this foundation is so important, and that's why we care about it so much. And we know that when we share this story with a lot of other people, and they come to Meninga, especially if they come, on July 2nd, they'll feel that, and they can experience it for themselves.
That's what I think that's the thing. Going down there, is emotional because it is still a living, breathing space.
Yeah.
This place still has so much life, as much as death there was. It has so much life because the memories are there, and those who march into. Now the idea is that you revisit. And is it a reenactment of sorts? Or
It's just a commemoration. It's a commemoration. It's to honor the folks who were forced to march. And we always start out with mood music. I mean, period music at the front. So you hear all these nice songs.
Music of the 40s.
Music of the 40s. Don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. That kind of stuff. And the minute the march starts, wow, the mood just. It's like somebody switched. You flip the switch. So then it becomes real
Very
solid.
solemn, yeah.
From the minute you stand at the Elig Bridge, I remember my first year, Uncle Willie explained play by play, and he goes, but you won't feel anything until the day of. So we're standing at the front of the Elig Bridge with Uncle BJ, and you see the runners, and I just, tears flood, just flood with emotion. I've never heard stories, never. I just hear it from Uncle Willie. But that moment was like, I will never ever not participate. I will make sure that this always happens.
Wow. Is that why you're so
Yes.
involved in it now?
And people my age, honestly, they hear it, they're like, okay, it's another event.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
they don't truly understand the meaning of it.
So that's why you have to figure
That's
out a
my
way
mission.
to go. Yeah. Well, and I think that I've always said that Guam is in the midst of this incredible renaissance, and there
Yes.
are young people as yourselves that are. Excuse me.
We're young.
You're young. You're young. I mean, by comparison, but I think that over the generations, we've always tried to get younger
Yes.
people involved in the story, and the only way to do that is sometimes to just take the time to go find the story.
Yes,
Yeah.
or bring the story to them.
And bring the story
In
to
my
them.
case, and people my age is, I've literally had to take people to them, and they sit and they listen, and they're like, wow.
She has changed.
Well,
She has
you know
changed
what?
for the first.
I
the
wanna-
first about
okay.
it, she has changed.
In what way have you changed?
She used to be, oh, and then now she's, listen, you guys have no idea what this means. So she has really, I mean,
Come along.
she
You
You
has
mean in
really-
this event,
this event,
your
she-
whole attitude has
My
changed,
first
right?
event was like, I got to do it, right? So,
Yeah,
okay,
it was
this
a
is
job.
my-
Yeah,
This
yeah.
was my task. Now it's like, you don't do it? Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, she's very committed to it. We all are, yeah.
Well, there is a commitment, and we'll talk a little bit about that commitment, and then we'll give you the logistics on how you can participate. More than just going down to see it, but really the feeling of it. We'll talk about that after this break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Here we are at King's, feasting on Kutnipika and Tinalikutni and some Caligan and Tatitas and of course the fruit. That's what we have to have. But we were just talking about some of the emotions and the feelings that come from just being in the sacred grounds in Meninga. You, Willie, Senator, have been doing this for quite a while.
Yes.
The foundation from the start. And Senator just said that you have engaged your own children in this. They kind of grew up along with this.
Yeah.
Were they interested in what you were doing, or was that just another project that my dad is into? Right?
Another project that Dad is into, and then one year, I forget which year, I said to Janet, hey, so we got some shirts made that said, I'm walking in honor of. And so we had, their grandparents on both sides. We put their names there, the great grandparents. So they're walking in honor of Tambed and Kwetu, walking in honor of Justo Flores, and all this. And that's when I saw the switch. And they all turn on and they go, whoa. So they've got it, yeah.
Yeah.
So every year they've been helping, and this year they're working very well with Tina, and yeah. So
I think we've taken over.
they have taken over. It's beautiful.
Will, Bella, and I have taken over the planning and the logistical part of it, and we just look to Senator Lee and Uncle Willie for their support and their approval, really, their guidance in where we're going with this.
How much bigger does it get every year? What is going to be different about this year than that might have been?
It actually gets smaller
It gets smaller.
because of the Manamco. Yeah.
In a way, it gets smaller. What our hope is that we know that every single year we have less and less survivors participating, sadly. But our hope is that we have more and more of our community engaged,
That's right.
and we instill something in them. Not just a memory of this place, but we really want to provide our cultures are oral. We have oral traditions, and so we need to continue to tell each other these stories and tell it to our children and our grandchildren, and so that they can perpetuate this and bring it forward, and hopefully, it'll continue to grow.
So you see the numbers dwindling.
Yes.
But are you going after a different target audience now? I mean, that's the thing.
That is truly Bella and Will and I's hope, is to kind of ease off on Uncle Willie's part and bring in people our ages and really understand the importance of Meninga.
Yeah.
Our war survivors. This morning I met Auntie Susie and Uncle Ben Marceo, and Auntie Susie pointed at me and she said, "I never miss a memorial." I said, "I do know that." And she has a song. She recorded a song, Has to Meningan, and every year we play it. She's part of the program, and she never misses a single lyric. Wow. She remembers it by heart, and she's called me every day since we've announced it, and she's like, "Am I on the program?"
Yes, Auntie Susie, you're on the
you're
program.
very much.
And
on
shout
the
out to Auntie Susie and Uncle Ben, because they're celebrating 67 years of marriage. So
She looks great. I love
Yes,
her.
she
She
does.
looks great.
And the thing about Auntie Susie and Uncle Ben is that when we first, and there's a lot of people involved in getting this Meninga thing going, and we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Rita Franquez. Rita Franquez. I mean,
She's a huge part of this.
Yeah, she was our partner in moving forward, and she did quite a lot. She actually talked to Dwight Look about the property, and then nothing ever moved. And then when she and I met by one day, and she goes, blah, 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 blah. And I said, Dwight, look, I said, he's a good friend. What do you need? And we were actually talking about Meninga, and that's how it came up. And so she actually got the commitment out of Dwight, and we got the letter. But I'm off tangent here. Auntie Susie and Uncle Ben, the first year we did this, we had a shout out for volunteers to come and help clean Meninga to get it ready. And guess who the first volunteers were now?
Uncle Ben and Auntie Susie.
And so I was talking to them, and they look too young to be, in the water. So who are you here for? And she started telling me her story. Everybody down there stopped working. The mayors, I said, hey guys, come here. So we listened to her story. Unreal, unbelievable what they went through. Unreal.
So the idea here is for everyone to assemble. Tell us the logistics of assembling at the location.
So there's a memorial run. You want to talk a little bit?
Yeah. We'll start off the Freedom Run at 8 a.m. and that'll start at the Chiguyan Point in Jigo. We do have 4 routes, I believe.
4 symbolic routes.
4 symbolic
that we're
routes.
running.
Wait, from Jigo?
Yeah.
Our first
Okay, so
kickoff.
you're doing legs.
They know the fire. The fire department is taking Jigo, right? It's the fire department. I believe.
National Guard
and
now.
the National Guard, and they will run. They will relay all the way down to
All the way
Meninga.
down. Relay down.
And then
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
these points are the marching points
Yeah.
of
Okay.
the different
How everybody
camps.
congregated. Yeah.
Meninga.
And then we have the judiciary, the marshals there, and then we have the Guam police, and we have the customs. No,
They're
they're
amped
ready to
up. They're
run. They're
motivated.
ready.
All the
Yeah,
way.
absolutely.
Okay, so when they run through, I mean, that's sort of
the 4
signals.
points will run in, and then they'll meet at the Elig Bridge. Once they get to the Elig Bridge, they'll meet the marchers, the survivors,
Yeah.
and other families who will be marching in with them.
We're hoping that's going to be around 2 o'clock.
yeah.
So the march-in will start at 2 o'clock. The memorial service will start promptly at 3 o'clock. And then the memorial mass will be at 4, and then followed by dinner.
But you know that between Patty, I'm going to tell you, between the march, once a march starts and that service, it's just a really highly emotional time. I mean, you can feel it.
It
know,
is,
the-
definitely.
It's not a party scene
Oh,
or
no.
anything. It's just there's something about it, right?
But what's also interesting to me is the people who participate, in addition to our Manumku and our local families that come. The U.S. military is represented every single year, and the Japanese consulate is also represented. And one of the most moving parts is when the Japanese consul general places his wreath. It's so moving. It
And
really.
the Japan piece, the Japan Guam piece,
Japan,
there
right.
they come.
So this is the first of them. Does the foundation try to get engaged in the other memorials that they have at other sites?
Even though our purpose is, even though our name is Meninga Memorial Foundation, our legal purpose and our objective is to make sure that what happened at the other side, Faja, Tinta, Fena, Tsaguian, they are never forgotten. Those are on our, it is to honor everyone.
So you assist, or that's left up to the original organizer?
It's up. We, for instance, Tsaguian, when it started, we assisted, but then we leave it up to their organizers to let us know what they need. We don't want to overstep our bounds. I mean, this is a very respectful, very emotional, highly charged time. So we just we'll tell them we're there. Let us know what you need if you need anything. And then more than anything, they need us in attendance to make sure that So
There was something you were telling me about the missing men who were gathered from other locations.
Amazing, a lot of the young men. My dad was one of them. He was lucky to escape. They were gathered and taken to Meninga to carry arms, then from Meninga all the way up to Jigo, Tsaguian. This is how the whole Tsaguian thing. My dad was on his way to Tsaguian.
Wow.
So one year, several years ago, I saw Tunsus Chamorro, pacing back and forth behind Armania, and he was really, in deep thought. And I said, hey, so I went and asked him, are you okay? Do you need medical help? Are you okay? And he goes, no, I'm just thinking. And he told me, I'd heard the story, he told me about these 12 young men that he knew that were taken from their families, and they were supposed to carry arms and munitions to Meninga, and then from Meninga to Tsaguian. And they never made it to Meninga. Some of the men from Agate made it, but these men never made it. And
They never made it to that first site.
Nobody
Or
ever.
they never came back from Tsaguian. Which one?
No, they never made it to the first site.
site.
They never made it to the first site. Nobody
Wow.
even knew what happened to them.
Wow.
And so, excuse me. So Tunsus, as he was pacing, he goes, man, I can feel them. I can feel them. And so, since that year, we've done the Lost Men of Agate.
The Lost Men of Agate route.
Yeah.
And Tina will tell you about our speaker this year.
Our speaker this year will be NTB Villasoto, Dolores Villasoto. She's originally from Agate, and she will talk on her brother, who was one of the men who was beheaded and was one of the lost.
No, he was one of the lost
Men.
men that we don't know what happened
Yeah.
to them. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people who are unaccounted for,
Yeah,
and I think
yeah.
when the community comes together for these kinds of events, no matter if you have a family member, there was somebody in your family that knows this
That's right.
story, and if they don't speak of it, these events kind of bring, they bring out these hard emotions. I mean, it's the original PTSD, a lot of them are still facing, the horrors of it. But this event is one of the first ones to launch the Liberation festivities. Again, give us the date, July 2nd.
Yeah, it's
till
Sunday, July 2nd. We'll begin around 2 o'clock will be the march in, 3 o'clock is the ceremony, and 4 p.m. is the mass. But we really want to just invite everyone, the entire community, to come out and join us and be part of this and to help us perpetuate this story.
That is the story, and you'll hear more about it in the coming weeks. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. Thank you, Kings.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you to all of our sponsors. We want to invite people to check us out on Facebook.
Yeah.
We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram.
We're on Twitter.
And on Twitter, we want to make sure they just look at Meninga Memorial Foundation.
Yeah, Patty, we've had sponsors since the beginning. I've lifetime sponsors, and they don't ask for anything.
Bless their hearts. And bless you guys.
Thank you. God bless
All
you.
right, that'll do it this time. We'll see you.